If I was trying to grow a space elevator, I'd try to figure out like some sort of cell. I don't know if I'd use fungi, I'd probably try to use a tree, but like something that could tolerate unbelievably high intracellular pressure to essentially be self-supporting.
Erum, welcome back to the Grow Everything podcast.
I felt like I never left.
I feel like you've been gone forever. You've been gone way too long.
Yeah.
Where were you? Tell the listeners where you were and what you did. Give us the 30,000 foot view.
Yeah, well, I mentioned in the previous episode, I was going to Copenhagen, and I went to Copenhagen for a week. A friend of mine lives there with his family, and we did a house swap.
Nice.
It's cool because we have the same mentality-ish. It was interesting to live in their house because it had the same things that we would have if we were to live in Copenhagen. It was great. And they live right on a canal. There's a series of townhomes that are on a canal. And I think some of them are like man-made canals, but it's like right on the water. So you can kayak around the block, which is really cool.
Yeah, you sent me a picture. It was very cool to see you kayaking, especially this time of the year in Copenhagen. I was upstate for a couple of days and I was looking at the lake, which now has no ice on it. And I was thinking I could bring my kayak out there, but no way. It's too cold. You're very brave.
Yeah, it was great. So I went to Copenhagen and then we did a day trip in Sweden. And then we went to Iceland for 4 days and 3 nights. So I have this like great 10-day Nordic experience with like different Nordic cultures. It's just amazing to be there because at this time of year, the days are longer. So Denmark sunset was around 8:45 and in Iceland, it was around 10 p.m.
That's crazy. I mean, I know it goes till midnight or something like that. And you told me the sun comes out at 5 or something?
Yeah, like 5 a.m. So that's a long day, but it felt like it made time go a lot slower because we just had more of it. I just felt like there was more time there. And also the culture is more relaxed. And I did do some work there, as you know. You and I were chatting and I got to meet some of our biotech friends, which I'll mention in a bit. But I just loved the living. Everything was so pristine. Now I'm back in Brooklyn. I dropped my son off in school and we had crossed a couple streets. And there's streets that have like trash or like plastic bag just flying in. Sorry. I know we live in Brooklyn, but it was a stark difference. And I was just like, oh.
Yes, It's very different. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So, but overall, it was great because I also got to meet some of our biotech friends. So I met Sarah Najad. She was at New Lab, but she is also a friend of ours, a biotech friend of ours, hung out with us in Synbio Beta. She's been also an adjunct professor at NYU Tandon, teaching a biodesign course. Got a chance to hang out with her. And then also Klaus Lassen of Novonesis, Cerelia Cesar of Nucleate Denmark, which was cool to meet up with her. We're friends on LinkedIn, and this is a great time for me to be like, hi, I'm an actual person. I'm not a bot that lives on LinkedIn.
Right. It's not just Grow Everything or LinkedIn. Yeah. I am real. It's not my AI yet.
Yeah, I'm real. And it was just great meeting her for the first time and talk shop. We were very like-minded in terms of biotech, business, leadership, innovation, that whole intersection. So we were able to geek out for not enough time. I felt like she would be someone that would be great to live near and grab coffee with regularly.
Nice.
Yep. And then our friend Lasse, got to hang out with him. We had lunch with him and it was great. So Lasse of Exozymes, formerly Invazyme. He was great. I mean, we talked shop a little bit, but overall, he was giving me the details of Danish cuisine and all the hot spots, where to dine and what to eat. And it was great. It was really cool.
Yeah, because Lasse is a communications expert at Exozymes, but he also happens to be a well-known Danish food critic, right?
Yeah, food critic, food judge. So He's the hot dog judge on Instagram. So if anybody wants to follow him, we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Amazing.
Yeah. And he shared a lot of history, culture, and my husband was eating with us too. I'm like, that felt like an Airbnb experience or like a food tour, but it was just him hanging out and it was great. I just loved being immersed in Danish culture. We talked a lot about not just everyday living, but also work culture and the differences when it comes to marketing in Europe or in Denmark and marketing in the United States. So it was cool to talk about that and look at that in contrast with each other. So that was a lot of fun. And then after Copenhagen, went to Iceland, saw my friend Ausberg. She works at a geothermal power plant in Iceland and amazing house. But the big thing I did here before this trip, Karl, was I used ChatGPT to create my itinerary.
I know you told me. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
How'd it work out for you?
It was phenomenal. We went on hiking trails. We went to dine at these unique places. We went to great playgrounds and parks. And what I did was I was like, hey, ChatGPT, I'm going to Copenhagen on these dates with my family. I like to look at nature and different plants, and I'm really into biology. And my husband's really into culture and art and museums. And my son's 4 years old and likes what 4-year-olds like. And it spit out this amazing itinerary for everything, all 10 days.
Amazing.
Day trip to Lund, Sweden. So we did that as well. You go to this playground and go here first, then here. On the way here, don't forget to stop and do this. It's a quick 15-minute excursion. And I'm like, oh my God. So it was cool in Denmark, but we also had a lot of tips from friends. I mean, this was our second time there. Iceland, we did like a 24-hour layover before, but for 4 days and 3 nights, it was incredible. We saw such amazing nature and climates. We went to a hot river.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was beautiful. And then everything from snowy mountaintops with hot rivers to volcanic beaches that had geysers like just spitting out from like everywhere. So it was super fun. I felt like it would be great for you to go to, and having the month where you can go and write and look at vistas. I was like, Karl should be here because we went to this amazing hotel and all the windows there are just framed perfectly for the terrain or the view. So it looked like you're looking at a painting, but it was real. And we stayed more in the southern part, not too far from Reykjavik, within a 2-hour radius of Reykjavik.
Right.
But if you can go really up north and go glacier hiking, and then they have actual erupting volcanoes you can visit. It's just nuts. And I tried to take some samples. I was like, oh, all of our microbiologists would love to get some samples of like thermal pools. And then I was just like, wait, I know that there's protocols. I'm probably not handling this right. This is not that trip.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't do that. I mean, it's super interesting to me because like, I think of Copenhagen as being a very strong contender when it comes to biotech and healthcare. I mean, London, of course, has probably the biggest biotech industry in all of Europe, with Munich and Amsterdam right behind, but doing different things. But given the amount of funding and the amount of money that Novo Holdings has, I think that really moves Copenhagen upwards in terms of the rankings, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to Iceland, I just think of the extreme environment. It shows up at the beginning of Prometheus, one of the alien movies, like an alien prequel. And there's a great scene in, Secret Life of Walter Mitty, where Ben Stiller is skateboarding down this crazy hill as part of his life adventure. And yeah, the Nordic lifestyle is super nice. It's funny because I had flagged this story that was in the news about extremophiles on Mars, where these researchers were exposing different lichen to really like very harsh conditions, a year's worth of radiation over the course of 5 hours. And they found that these lichens were able to remain active. And what I found interesting about that, and it relates to this, you being in Iceland, is probably comparing what kind of lichen there are there, like those are, or the extremophiles that are there, and which ones, as they exist in the world, would be the ones that would be the right ones to send to Mars. But this article, which we'll link to in the show notes, actually said that really the first biology that's going to go to Mars is going to be humans. So big mistake, humans. We should be sending bugs up there, microorganisms, before we send people.
Yeah. So it's colonization any way you look at it. Whether it's going to be bugs or humans, Mars is going to get colonized.
Yeah. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Let's all work towards it. And I will say also in Iceland, obviously there's extreme conditions there. And recently there were some volcanic eruptions near the Blue Lagoon in Grindavik. We drove past it and you can see it's just black terrain. Everywhere, because it was after the lava cooled, it's just black terrain. And you can see where it stops and then it's just like regular land. And then maybe 20 minutes outside of that, there were like older volcanic eruptions. And then you just see this terrain that's very fluid looking, but that they have unique lichen on top of it.
Wow.
It's not just black, but it has a light green on top of it. And I'll send you pictures and maybe I can put them in the show notes at some point or post it on Instagram or LinkedIn. Maybe I'll do that. And then you'll see near the geysers that there's multiple colors and different types of plant and fungi life, I guess you can say. I mean, lichen is a fungi in an algae.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. You'd put a note that you wanted to mention Blue Carbon documentary. What is the Blue Carbon documentary?
Yeah. So After seeing all of this beautiful nature, I was on a flight. There was a lot of Icelandic movies, but there was this one movie, it's a documentary. Icelandic, there's a lot of great ones actually, but there were, because we took Icelandic Air. And if you ever want to travel to Europe, I recommend Icelandic Air because
Icelandic Air is awesome. I've taken it to Europe a bunch of times.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we should reach out to them like, hey, you want to promote the podcast? That was a free promo, Icelandic Air. But they had this documentary called Blue Carbon. And blue carbon is carbon dioxide that is absorbed from the atmosphere and stored in oceans. The documentary was created by, her name is Jada Guy, and she's a DJ / a biologist. And she's looking at more ecosystems of different animals. That's what she studied. But she also studied the relationships between biology and acoustics.
Oh, wow.
She would use all this crazy equipment, for example, to listen to whale sounds. There's this hydrophone, and she took samples of whale sounds and put them in her music. And she's a really good DJ. She plays at all these music festivals. The documentary soundtrack was by RZA, and it was an incredible documentary because it was about biology, ecosystems, how you can look at different environments as carbon sinks. And so they looked at how mangroves were regenerated. They also talked about how different areas regenerated after they were either damaged through industry or they were damaged through warfare. So during the Vietnam War, when there was Agent Orange and different chemicals that were sprayed to destroy agriculture in the land, so it wouldn't be usable. But that was many years ago, and now it's been regenerated to some degree. But there was different areas that were along coastlines or mangroves or different water basin type of environments that they would go to. So it was beautifully shot. I highly recommend it. It won a bunch of awards.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I know we've said it on the podcast that there's a statistic that says that if you grew seaweed in a plot that was the size of Texas, you could absorb a lot of the carbon that is in the atmosphere.
Exactly right. So that's a hopeful message.
Yeah, it is a hopeful message.
Climate, there's things that we can do now to help with reducing greenhouse gases. If we just let nature do its thing versus continually destroy it and suffocating it. So it was a really cool documentary. I think I really loved at the end, she says this quote after she talks about blue carbon and like how it could be used if you let nature do its thing. Her ending line was, "Science you can dance to," which I'm like, oh, nice. Cool. Yeah, because she's this DJ. Yeah. Amazing. It was like there are two worlds that I never really put together, music and biology. And here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Let's use that hopeful note about nature as a segue into our guest, who's a second-time guest on the Grow Everything podcast. That's Eben Bayer, who will not need an introduction to many people. But for those of you who don't know Eben, he is the co-founder, along with Gavin McGuire, of Ecovative. And Ecovative is known for creating things from mycelium. They have a big facility about 3 hours north of New York City in Green Island. And last time he came on, Eben talked about MyForest Foods. And part of the reason why we wanted to have Eben back on is because Eben, Ecovative, and MyForest Food had just raised $11 million to grow MyForest Foods. So we thought it would be a good time to have Eben come on, tell us about his progress so that our listeners could hear the story of this amazing company.
Yep.
Let's let Eben take it away.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Synbio. If you're a Grow Everything listener, you know that biology is the most important technology of the century. You also know that we're huge fans of the Synbio conference. I've been attending since 2014, and it's my favorite conference of the year. There is no faster way to get up to speed on synthetic biology and its impact across industries. This year, we're going to be joined by inventor Dean Kamen, futurist legend Peter Diamandis, and Brian Johnson, among many others. Synbio is where biology meets opportunities. So I hope you'll join us in San Jose, May 5th through May 8th to see how biology is transforming every industry. To get $400 off, use the promo code GROWEVERYTHING when you register at synbiobeta.com. I hope to see you there.
Eben Bayer, welcome back to the Grow Everything podcast.
Thank you for having me. Nice to speak again.
Yeah, so we heard that you've been bringing home the bacon. MyForest Foods has secured $11 million in funding. Curious to know what's been going on. We've been hearing about the success. We want to know if there's a shift in the vision of the company now that you've learned what's going on in the consumer world. And tell us, what's the future going to be?
Well, we sure see the world changing. I wouldn't say our vision's changed at all, though. I mean, we came in 2020 with a vision of we're going to make a super unprocessed food. It's going to be organic. It's going to be grown in a farm. We're going to transmute hemp or wood chips into a high quality protein. We're not going to use weird new strains. We're going to take strains of gourmet mushrooms that are eaten, but not really grown this way. And we're going to find like some applications that really delight people. And that was our first product, MyBacon. That was the reaction 5 years ago. We could only make 6 packs a week, one store for a year. The journey for us the past 4 years has been scaling up what is a very novel solid state fermentation process that can be done on existing farms, which gives it a really nice economic story, but was very hard to bring to reliable scale production. And over the past year, we've really blown through the last barriers there. We are producing within pennies of direct margin positive in our own farm. And now it's really the second half of the scaling story, which is really fun.
Before we get into the other questions, Eben, what was it that made it hard to grow or scale this? And you had also said have other farmers grow it. Does that mean that you're going to have a distributed model, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so we have a distributed model for sure. We're growing in 5 farms right now. We're growing food mycelium in 5 different farms. That includes one in the US, our own farm, a second pilot in Pennsylvania, a farm that's producing at full scale now for the past year in Canada, and 2 more farms in the Netherlands. And that's just for the food product. We've turned the corner on, can we use this generic-ish infrastructure as a crop? Your question on scaling, it's about the scale. So this is truly an unexplored way to grow mushroom mycelium. This aerial slab of meat that forms across this 100-foot-long bed is just an unknown way of doing it. And there's a lot of folks who have scaled in liquid fermentation with other organisms, and it is a hard process, but it actually is a very well-defined techno-economic space. And a lot of the things we had to figure out at scale, and that means putting 80,000 pounds of wet wood chips from a tractor trailer load on conveyor belts into these farms, growing the product, and really dialing in operational consistency based on all the work we've done at lab scale, pilot scale, quarter farm scale. But every time we do this, we're creating these giant boxes, these thermodynamic boxes. It's a complex generative pattern where the mycelium responds to the environment. We did a lot of science, we did a lot of predictive modeling, and often in scale, you got to blow up a lot of rocket ships until you got one that flies real nice, and just keep doing that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what this place looks like.
Yeah. I was going to say too, I mean, we need to take cameras there and how it's made. You did a good job of telling the story and being descriptive, but it would be good to see what an aerial slab of meat looks like.
Yeah. Folks listening, go to our website, ecovative.com. It's just a bunch of GIFs of movies, and you can scroll down. You can see the production process if you want just a quick visual. Or I'll send you some videos.
Yeah, we'll add them to the show notes for sure.
Cool.
So yeah, and we also heard that MyBacon has outsold pork bacon in some locations. So where is this happening? Do you know why? And are there any specific strategies you're using to help meat consumers give MyBacon a try?
I mean, I would say we consistently do that. We've consistently done that in our home market where we have a lot of repeat customers and we've built up a pretty big fan base. We also sell across nationwide in 1,300 stores now at 2.5 to 3 times the rate of the market leader in plant-based bacon, Light Life. And we do so at a higher price, about 50% higher price. So whether you're comparing us to pork bacon, where folks have had a chance to really appreciate the product, or nationwide, where some of these stores we've only been on the shelves for 6 months, we really perform really well and the customers like the product. I mean, that's the goal. It should taste good.
Yeah.
The rest of it's sort of downstream from the food perception angle, to be honest with you.
I was going to say 2 things. One is I remember my first field trip as a kid was going to a mushroom farm in Ventura, California, big, dark industrial facility. And then second point is I saw someone doing the sampling of the MyBacon product at the Whole Foods a couple blocks away from where I live. And I don't know if I took a picture and sent it to you, but I was definitely thinking about you that day.
I love it when you think about me.
Thanks, Evan. I know that we talked about what the customer reactions have been, and you said you had some really nice stories from particularly, I think, like someone who they couldn't eat meat or couldn't eat bacon anymore, and they really appreciate it. What kind of other feedback have you gotten since we've last spoken, and what refinements have you had to make based on feedback that you're getting?
The product recipe is remarkably stable from when we launched the product. So it's the same simple ingredients. It's salt, it's sugar, it's oyster mushroom mycelium from the Pleurotus oystreatus, this gourmet mushroom that we've eaten for a long time. And then it's natural flavorings, some smoke flavor, like liquid smoke, and then organic coconut oil, which provides the fat component. What we have done is we've gotten better at making it. So we've gotten better at slicing it reliably to the same thickness. That's really important. In our first version, some people would say, it takes me 15 minutes to cook this. And it's like, yeah, it did, because you got a thick slice. And if you don't cook it, it's not cooked. So we got really good at that. So it's a consistent pan-fried cooking experience. We've moved to vacuum infusion of flavors. This is a thing we've done that really helps make an even flavor profile normalize across the mycelium tissue. It's a pretty rich meat-like structure. It's quite heterogeneous, actually, and so that helped a lot on flavor distribution. Honestly, there's a lot of little tweaks to just make a quality product. We're at higher and higher scale.
Yeah, it's definitely a quality product. I've tried it and it's amazing. It was with some friends and they had a variety of different plant-based breakfast meats and we're just trying them all. MyBacon was the best. It had the crisp, it had the flavor, it did all the things it needed to do to be what makes bacon beautiful and incredible.
Cool.
So like, not because you're on this podcast. I mean, we do commentary after this and I will say it again. This is not just because you're here, but it's truly a great product. But what's next? Are there new types of complementary products MyForest Foods will make alongside MyBacon? Any other mycelium-based food products are on the pipeline?
Yeah, I'm excited to get back to that finally. We did like a Feast of the Future 4 years ago, and we did lots of cool foods, and we got really focused just on the really good bacon. We've been teasing it. We shared this at Expo West. We were serving pulled pork made from our shredded mycelium at Expo West.
Yum.
It's the same clean nutrition profile. Yeah, same 5 ingredients, but it really serves more center of plate. And you can do it in tacos. You can do pulled pork. We've done it in quite a different formats. It comes just very lightly seasoned. So you can fry it up in your pan at home or in the oven, or you can put a little sauce. We've got this great Asian barbecue sauce our chef's been using lately. It really works. We're getting great early testing, and that'll be launching in retail later this year. We'll be previewing that at NRA, the National Restaurant Association, in June.
That sounds so great. The alternate protein space has had a tough time, and there are some other companies that have mycelium-based meats. I wouldn't say the space is crowded, but there are more competition. What does that look like from a differentiation point of view? And what's the strategy you guys have for maintaining your competitive edge?
Core strategy is really be a delicious product that people enjoy and do that in a way that's fundamentally baked into our competitive advantage, which is this very painful to scale, organic, farm-made mycelium manufacturing process. So our goal is keep doing that. We're going to keep leveraging this first ingredient to make other great products, like removing center of plate. We want to keep delivering on the same great experience to consumers, keep communicating. We're like not a processed food. This is manually shredded and flavored for you. And then lastly, we want to focus on efficiency and scale. We're at a turning point in our ability to deliver this to the market at a price that's reasonable to consumers, a product they love, and at a price that our farmers make money and we make money as a manufacturing company. And in this environment, taste is the only metric for the customer. Direct margin positive profitability is the only metric for the shareholders. And so I think we're really happy and excited to be marrying those in a way that I think works in capitalism to deliver a good result in many vectors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the underlying mycelium is from oyster mushrooms. Are there certain benefits of oyster mushrooms that come through as you make MyBacon and similar products using this mycelium platform? Taste is definitely the barometer for the consumers, but health is definitely a strong second. People want to eat nutrients and things as they think about what's missing in their diet, and they're becoming more educated in that. Can you share something along those lines?
So I would say not all mycelium is created equal. Oyster mushroom mycelium is really good for you. There's been a lot of independent studies on the fruiting body itself, but just as a food, it's a high fiber protein. Most people don't get enough fiber in their diet, particularly when they're eating either meat or these ultra processed soy-based meats. And then the beta glucans are good for heart health. There's beta glucans as a big portion of the cell wall. We don't make those kind of claims on the product again, but those are all inherent benefits in eating the mushroom mycelium itself. The product itself, you have less fat, less salt, less sugar than you might in a conventional pork bacon. So we're not trying to make the healthiest food here, but we're trying to make something that's generally better across the board. And you'd definitely be well served eating this as a source of fiber.
Yeah, that's amazing. Especially since we're going through this phase, or it's just to be seen, cleaning up the food supply and trying to get these ingredients. People definitely want to eat cleaner. People want to know that their food doesn't have any microplastics or PFAS or that kind of stuff.
Heavy metals. Yeah,
exactly.
The mycelium special in its ability to transmute materials. And we work with these trees as a substrate. An incoming substrate is not a cultivated crop that has anything on it. It's really nice. You get a couple levels of cleaning going on.
Wow. Okay, you have 5 facilities. 3 of them are ex-US, Netherlands and Canada, but you've got a pilot plant in Pennsylvania. How does this fit into a broader strategy of scaling production beyond those facilities and even beyond regions outside of Canada and Europe?
So the air mycelium process we practice, whether we grow leather or we grow food or something else, the ideal network is these farms that already exist, these agaricus mushroom farms. Epicenters are Pennsylvania, parts of Canada. The Netherlands has just a lot of these. And then, of course, parts of Asia, Southeast Asia, Central Asia. They're in Poland, Russia, they're in South America. So this infrastructure has found its way all around the globe. Not all of them are perfect. Some of them have more capacity than others. There's been a lot of high quality capacity built in Europe. It's one of the reasons we're so active there. And we always have the opportunity to greenfield our own facility. For the coming year of demand, we've got 5 or 6 farms that represent like 50 million pounds of theoretical mycelium production capacity for us. And so we're going to lean in there. And we are also open. We're having some state discussions about expanding our own controlled farms as well.
50 million tons. Holy cow.
Pounds.
Oh, pounds.
Divide by 2,000.
Sorry.
Been 2 more years on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's incredible that you're working with farmers. I'm curious to know, are there any partnerships with food brands or retailers that you care to share? And how do you go about making those relationships?
We have a great veteran sales team from the food industry led by Deb Batista. We've got great sets of brokers that interact with these stores, and we're working through one by one. We were really held out of some of the larger names, not because we weren't asked to slot, but because we learned that if we didn't have supply continuity, we're only going to get one shot. And we've worked really hard to manage our kind of inventory on hand. And for a couple of years, we never had any inventory. It was like every week, it's like fulfilling orders lean on demand. And so now we've demonstrated stability on that in our scale curve. We're going after some of the larger accounts. Like we just went into 75 Market 32s. That's a New York store, for instance. We're in about 1,300 doors. We add 50 doors a week right now. We'll be in 4,000 by the end of the year. Some of those will be other big chains across the US and includes Whole Foods. We're expanding into a bunch more Whole Foods.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing because I think when we last spoke, I had just seen it in this little grocery store that's up the street from me. Just like a surprise. There's a name for these little tags that they put on the shelves, a shelf talker. And then lo and behold, the next thing I know, I just happened to be in Whole Foods the day that the person is offering tastings of it. And people were stopping to check it out. But one of the things that you guys do just in general is you talk about the environment. You talk about the benefits of your products to the environment. And compared to conventional meat, what metrics do you guys measure? What are you implementing to ensure production methods stay sustainable as you get bigger? What does that look like?
So it depends on the meat you compare to. So pork, beef, and chicken all have, I think, very different environmental stories you might consider, from effluent and ethics around sentience through methane emissions and global temperatures. In the pork domain, I'm personally really big on the ethical component here for pigs, and the raising very sentient animals to make delicious foods is just hard. And then on the protein conversion side, pigs are pretty good. We're better than pigs in protein conversion. We also use a lot less water. 1% of the water, a lot less land. There's a runoff issue, manure that gets created. And so those are domains when we go deeper on an ESG story, we might look at as all areas where we think we're making meaningful improvements to Spaceship Earth infrastructure while still providing like the denizens, our people riding around on Spaceship Earth, like a really great bacon product, but less suffering on the planet, less suffering for the pig.
I'm glad you got the Spaceship Earth in there.
I got it, right?
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about Spaceship Earth. Sorry, Karl.
Why are you saying sorry to me? I have the book. There's no reason to be sorry.
You're always thinking about me. I'm always thinking about Spaceship Earth. I think I got the book here too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So tell us, what's the longer term vision? You said you had a Future Food Fest where you guys were tasting and trying new stuff. Anything you could share with us that you tasted or that you are thinking about in the future for product lines?
Yes, but we just say nailing plant-based bacon is like $100 million opportunity for us. And we have a huge focus on just continuing to deliver this delightful bacon to as many customers of either existing plant-based bacons or pork bacon in the coming years. We really see a lot of runway on that. I think the shredded mycelium is going to do a lot of heavy lifting for us. It's a center of plate product. It's lightly flavored. We've launched it as a pork product, but there's a beef analog and a chicken analog that make a lot of sense that will come. There's a universe of other meats we can do. There's also a universe of things like chips and carbohydrates. We made this really delicious low-carb, high-protein mycelium chip if you dry it down. Some of those require us to go to higher scale. The value proposition of meat is really great. The value proposition of carbohydrates is less good if you look at revenue or margin potential. So we also sequence those against, we were like $100 a pound production cost a year ago, or a couple bucks now. As that kind of gets down, mushrooms are like less than $1. We expect to converge with the button mushroom economics. There's the pie of things that we can sell and sell at a better and better price to our customers.
That's awesome.
Pie.
I'm always looking for, I know, you know where I'm going with this, Erum.
Yes, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. My Achilles heel is tortilla chips and tortillas in general. And part of it is just because my favorite food is tacos, but chips are in the top 5. So I'm always looking for healthy chips, high protein chips. I try everything. So I'm really looking forward to trying these mycelium chips. It sounds amazing.
I'll get you on the prototype list. We made a mycelium computer chip this spring as well for DARPA.
Wait, what? Like a computer
Yeah,
chip, like a snack that looks like computers?
It's a neuromorphic chip. So it's a mycelium that's been impregnated with conductive material, and we map the morphology of the mycelium to the resistance profile across it, and we use that as like a reservoir to do voltage summations, and then you can have it's sort of like a cyborg. You got a digital side that basically is an activation if you have enough voltage summings, and you can get pretty high density analog computation in that format. Chips are coming all around.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What? That's so crazy. Computer chips. I mean, like the way you're describing it sounds like a brain.
We built a real one. We was trying to build prototypes, and the prototype detects colors. It's cool. He's trying a red light. It says red.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because this actually leads into our next question. But before I get into it, I want to make the comment that there is no reason why computer chips all have to be made with silicon. And I think what we witnessed with DeepSeek and AI a couple months ago, where it was this DeepSeek moment, unexpected new AI tools emerging, a different model, not needing as much energy. I think we need more of those kinds of disruptions across the board. But give us an update on Ecovative. You and I have run into each other at these DARPA events. I know you go to these policy events. What's going on with those? What are you seeing? What's going on with Ecovative?
So Ecovative remains focused on the scale up of mycelium in general. As a reminder for everyone, we supply folks that grow mushroom packaging in different countries with our composite-based material. We supply the legacy mushroom industry with spawn. So both the folks that grow our new product and old mushrooms buy spawn from us. So we've integrated into that global supply chain. On the forager front, we're continuing to scale our Europe products, our leather product in Europe. We have one farm growing that there. We're working with some awesome brands, which I can't tell you, but if and when you see that on the shelves, it'll be high volumes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, on the very cutting research side, we're really focused mostly on applications in this electrical interactions with mycelium, both living and dead mycelium. So the electrical properties in dead sheets of mycelium and their application to artificial intelligence and computation, moving digital processes into the analog domain. And then some flavor of the same on the living side, but more around morphological influence, which ties back to leather, actually. And then we're doing other stuff with the foam. So I don't know if you saw the earplugs. The brand Gob has raised $1 million or $2 million. They do basically fully compostable earplugs. You wear them, you can compost them afterwards. There's like 50 million earplugs or something produced, these 3M foam earplugs every year. They seem to have found an interesting niche. We're a partner of those, obviously provide 100% of the compostable foam for them. Things in mattresses, there's some programs going on there. Those are areas you'll probably see the foam show up.
Yeah, that's amazing. The mycelium stuff reminds me, I can't remember where I read it, this idea that spores are able to do the traveling salesman problem better than computers are.
Yeah, fly mold.
Yeah, they can find the best route between 2 points faster and better than computers actually can.
Totally. There's a lot of analogous properties there. And I guess putting your engineering hat, you're like, how can I tap into that in a way that's useful is the goal. But we see a couple areas of interest there.
Yeah. Let's bring it to Erum's favorite topic, which is space. Any space applications you're thinking of? Because we have had a number of space people on and actually just talked to someone, just had another interview with someone brought up space randomly. So mycelium in space, what's the future?
You know, DARPA had this solicitation, which we talked about and I thought quite a bit about. First of all, I'm pro going to Mars. I'll just throw that out. I think we should go to Mars. We should definitely have multiple outposts for humans. Ecovative is a company that's very focused on Spaceship Earth. And I think mycelium is uniquely suited to Spaceship Earth. Maybe it came from space, panspermia, but it's here now. With that said, I do think mycelium in space could be interesting. Mycelium composites, which we pioneered, many forms of cell culture are constrained by gravity. That is to say, the lowest density hemp board I can make is around 4.5 pounds per cubic feet. If I fluff it perfectly with air, and I grow the mycelium through it. Now, I can grow mycelium at a density that's 10 times lower. That's our air mycelium platform, but it radically drives up the price and you get a now homogeneous material. In space, you could float each of those hemp particles just away from each other. And then I call this space expanded mycelium. And they'd connect. They'd grow like little fibers. Seen fire burn in space? It burns like a circle. We hypothesize the mycelium cell culture will go out in all directions. So you have these little particles in the center, nutritional ones, and they expand. That's how you get your volume to mass. And then they can all connect and you can lay wires between them or conduits and they'll form around it. It'll be more like spray foam, what people imagine sometimes when they hear about the composite board, but done with mycelium in space. So that would be my humble contribution. I don't think we're going to do that, but I think that should be done.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, what would the applications be for that? I mean, just to dream a little bit.
You want to bring as little mass to orbit as possible or mass to volume ratio. We can't do much about the mass side because we're not going to take photons in and do anything. But what we can do is get really good at origami. So there's a lot of designs for solar sails where they pack things in really well. Mm-hmm. Well, with mycelium, you could have 30 megajoules per kilogram of starch energy, which is grain, that's seed, that's mycelium spawn.
Yeah.
And then you could expand that out. You can imagine making giant structures. You need an enclosure like a bag that fill that really efficiently in a way that maybe you wouldn't be able to do with a chemical foam, and then get all the benefits of a living material, particularly around the ability to control it. And then on the application side, people want to clean up space. They want to make these nets to pick things up. There's things like optical deterrence where creating large shades might be interesting. There's areas I'm particularly interested outside of ecovative and geoengineering in general. I think there's some application spaces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, for sure. And one of the things I think about is the factories that build the factories themselves. And I think we definitely need to see that in space, because the spaceship that builds itself is the one that you don't have to ship up there. You can just ship up the seeds for that and take it from there.
Yeah. We could send the seeds to Mars and we'll get a whole other spaceship Mars.
There you go.
What does it eat? Just air, methane?
Oh, on Mars?
No, I guess just in space. I mean, if you were to take the seed and create that mycelium composite, how would it grow?
It has to get all of its energy from the starch carrier or the fat carrier or the cellulose carrier you'd send up. The benefit is not creating mass in space. It's the ability to take a very concentrated amount of mass that might fit in a fairing of a rocket and maximally expand that and provide the maximum amount of information to the material. Life orders things with a high degree of precision. That's how you might take 100 or 200 pounds of material and make a biological structure that's really, really long in space. You can imagine acoustically. So you make this bag and inflates, boom. The grain spawn starts floating out and they're all like trying to get them perfectly spaced, like an inch apart. And then the grain spawn basically will shrivel up like that little point where it started from and be replaced with this like fluffy, almost like cotton ball of mycelium that'll come out. And then they'll all touch each other and then they'll fuse.
Yeah.
I presume.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. Wow.
Yeah, the other thing, I'm drawing the connection with Erica De Benedictis, who was on the podcast, and she's working on developing microbial chassis for Mars. And her idea is you can send these microbes up, they'll clean the soil, they can make plastic bricks, and then at the same time bring the soil to life by adding more microbes to the soil. My question to her was, well, what's the plan? What's the order of plants that people are thinking about? Because the soil is basically polluted and you need to clean the soil. And so things like hemp and bamboo, and I think probably kudzu fall in this category of plants that are known for remediating soil. And I'm sure mycelium falls into that category as well.
Yeah. There's like a lot of salts, right? Percolates and stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Percolates. Yeah. That's the killer.
The bleach.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should use mycelium to make that space elevator tether.
Yeah, there we go. The tether. Yeah. It's got to be strong enough, though. Yeah.
Is mycelium a strong product?
Yeah, maybe 50. You're a lot of orders of magnitude away from space tether, diamond space tether. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tensile strength is similar, about 10 MPa, though, when it's wet. So just the pure Ganoderma mycelium. And that's very similar to animal skin, like tanned leather. So for a biological product, it's pretty good. That's why we use leather. So I use skin.
Yeah.
Hard to beat steel cable.
Yes, but the idea has been graphene cable. That's what they've been talking about, graphene. The problem there is that graphene is very energy intense to produce, mostly. You could produce it in plants. Bamboo has a lot of crystal in it. So if you could get it to structure the right way.
I haven't thought a lot about this, but the most radical idea I heard for building a space elevator was not to try and make a tether, but to try and make a pneumatical inflatable structure.
There you go.
So like use pressure. And that would be if I was trying to grow a space elevator, I'd try to figure out like some sort of cell. I don't know if I'd use fungi, I'd probably try and use a tree, but like something that could tolerate unbelievably high intracellular pressure to essentially be self-supporting.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the heavens.
There you go.
That's so awesome. The latter.
That is awesome. Eben, was there anything else that we should have covered today?
I think you got it all. I think next time we talk, we should talk about geoengineering.
Oh my God.
Let's do that. Yeah.
That would be incredible. Are you coming to Synbio Beta this year or?
So I'm going to miss my first Synbio Beta ever, but I have a really good excuse for John. I'm having a child.
Congratulations.
At the same time. So yeah, I will be on a very short break, but I will be back.
Good
next
for you.
week.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a wrap for
you
us.
You are super efficient. Cool. This is how you make the big money. This is how you bring home the bacon.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of these, but this was fun. It was nice to do.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much again, Eben, for coming on. I know we've been trying for a while, but yeah, let's talk about geoengineering in 6 months or a year.
That'll be really fun.
Yeah. And good luck with that new baby. That's so exciting.
I know. I'm very, very happy. Yeah. Love the little ones.
Yeah.
Number one, then incubative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Thank you so much.
See ya. Hi, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Messaging Lab, the force multiplier for biotech. Your biotech company is making the world a better place. You know that, we know that. But does the world? There's a big reason why some biotech companies attract investors, sign up customers, and get attention. That reason is strategic communications. At Messaging Lab, we translate complex science and economics into compelling narratives. And we have done that for the most successful biotech companies across healthcare, agriculture, personal care and beauty, materials, and the list goes on. We're here to make sure your ideas not only get heard, but resonate with your audience. So if it's time to amplify your company's voice, visit messaginglab.com to explore how we can elevate your story and grow your business. So, Karl, what'd you think of that episode?
I don't know if listeners will remember, but when we had Eben on the first time, and I've known Eben for quite a few years, Eben had mentioned that MyForest Food could be turned into a $1 billion food company. And I believe they even hired an executive that came from the pork industry or the bacon industry. I have seen MyForest Foods bacon in my local grocery store, which is just up the street. And as I mentioned during the interview, I also saw someone doing samples at Whole Foods in front of the checkout aisles, and people were enthusiastic about it. So I think they're well on their way. What do you think, Erum?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I've tried it. I was with some friends that cooked it, and it was nice and crispy. It had all the makings of great product that has the same attributes that bacon does. It's really good. I love the fact that there's this mycelium food platform that's being created. So bacon's the first thing. This pulled pork product sounds really interesting. I think just in time for summer. I don't know when it's going to be on the shelves. We should definitely ask and make sure that everyone can try it somehow, let them know how they could try it. But it's a cool way of looking at what is good about mycelium and mushrooms to leverage the texture in a way that people are familiar with. So I like pulled chicken, but I can see that mycelium would be a good replica for a pulled meat product.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, there's a lot of people out there who are cutting down on their beef consumption or pork consumption. Unfortunately, the way those animals are farmed and treated is ethically questionable.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of suffering. So I think any alternatives, whether it's mycelium-based or whether it's lab-grown meat, I think is a welcome addition. And I'm super excited that Eben and his company are doing this. They seem to be taking the right approach.
Yeah, I wonder what the flavors. If it's going to be like barbecue flavors. And then it's like, what kind of barbecue? Because the more you niche down, the more I think interesting things get. Like, is it going to be Korean barbecue pulled?
Sriracha pulled pork.
Yeah, hot honey.
Yeah.
But then the barbecues, you have Carolina barbecue and you have Texas barbecue. So those are like very interesting details. But I would love, they have an R&D kitchen, right? Like a food kitchen.
I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do.
We got into this podcast on the road and we're definitely starting more video. We have clips, of course, that are on our social media. So Instagram, we've been putting them on LinkedIn. We have our YouTube page. We need to go on the road. We got to do these mini documentaries, whether they're at the companies that are producing product. Mr. Rogers used to do this where you'd go to how it works, how it's made. You'd go to the Crayola factory or other types of factories. We need to do that for the bioeconomy and go to these factories and see how things are made, how the sausage is made, the plant-based sausage, the mycelium-based sausage. There we go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a great idea. Let's just say that's going to be one of our goals for Q4 of 2025. Some mini documentaries based on our visits to different labs. So stay tuned, listeners and viewers, because we're going to be out there doing this.
Yay. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I'm happy to be back. Let's do this. Got a busy week ahead of us, and I'm excited for the next episode.
Awesome. So as you know, we do really appreciate the input and love we get from our listeners. We do have the Grow Everything hotline. We'll always leave it in the show notes. Leave us a message. I think that's the pod.
That's the pod.